Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We hope you're keeping very safe and well. Thank you so much for joining us 24 hours later after what we usually record. We've been bombarded with DMs this morning. My God, loads of messages. Where's the podcast? Where's the podcast? We're here. We're 24 hours later than planned. But as always, thank you so much for joining us. If you're listening to the show for the very first time, you can find us on iTunes, on Spotify, or on Audio Broom. We're across a range of different audio platforms. We are, of course, on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And as we say so far this season, for better or for worse, we are also live on YouTube. You make your mind up. I'm not sure how many times we're going to say that this season. Joining me, first up, of course, I've got my co-host who runs this crazy train of a show. I've got the wonderful Lee McQueen in the house. Lee, how are you?
Ricky, good evening. I can't believe we're so calm. 24 hours to absorb. Normally, if it was 24 hours after a defeat, at least we'd be more rational. Now that, the time that we wanted to just get it all out of our chest and say, amazing, we've got another 3 points, and we wait 24 hours. But yeah, really good, mate. Thank you. A great weekend, because the tonic of 3 points always goes down very well. So looking to enjoy the two other guests that we got on tonight, and obviously interacting with all the listeners and now viewers, as you say.
Of course. And it's actually nice this season. Like I say, we're giving out some fresh debuts, fresh voices on the Last Word on Spurs. I think this is a guy I've been trying to track down for a while. We've finally got him, nailed him down. Delighted to welcome Jonathan Veal from PA Sport with us. John, how are you? You well?
Hi there, yeah. Thanks for the invite. Finally replied to you. Accepted. So, yeah, happy to be here.
No problem at all. It actually did feel like a transfer at one point, John. I thought we were going to get this over the line.
Yeah, I know. You didn't offer enough bonus, and we're happy with the package. So luckily you came in with new terms, so here I am.
Here we go. Well, listen, I mean, unlike Daniel leaving, unlike the Spurs board, I am flexible. I will see if I can work the wallet to see what I can do. And there you go. We made it work. Also, delighted to also be welcoming for his debut. You'll know this voice very, very well when you're going berserk celebrating Spurs goals. We've got Spurs TV commentator. We've got the great Rob Daly joining us. Rob, how are you? Great to have you here finally.
No, it's great to be here, Ricky. I think we've been speaking on DMs as well on Twitter for quite a while about doing this. So it's very nice to be doing it. A lot easier to do it off the back of a win, and there's a deserved one as well. And actually, it felt like a very satisfying win, actually, given the circumstances around the game. So yeah, looking forward to getting into it and hearing what people have got to say with their questions and everything.
Yeah. Do you know what is funny, Rob? I mean, we do normally record these shows straight after a show. Recording 24 hours later, I mean, it's a bit more calmer. This is the thing now where you kind of have a chance to absorb, like Lee said, the game itself, the feedback from everyone's thoughts. And yeah, I mean, like I say, it's nice to actually bring debutants on after a win, because like I say, it's been tough over the last, I think it's fair to say, 18, 24 months. So delighted to have you both here. But Lee, let's start with you, because Spurs did bust Newcastle's Saudi bubble with an important win, which was nervier than it should have been after Dyer's late goal, but big performance at the number 10 role from Ndombele. Kane finally breaking his Premier League duck, and it was much improved performance from him as well. Credit, I think, also to Royal, Romero. Like I say, during that game, they played ever so well. Thoughts, Lee, on that win up at St James's Park?
Well, it was a cauldron, wasn't it? I mean, you go to Turkey or Besiktas, away in these kind of, European nights, and you expect, big atmospheres. And, to be fair, at St James's Park, it was exactly like that. Very, very hostile, if you like, atmosphere, party atmosphere, which I'm glad that we actually spoiled. I thought we played very well, other than the shaky start, of course. You couldn't make it up. Callum Wilson played for 4 games, comes back against Tottenham. Clearly, he scores within the first 2 minutes. But I thought we controlled the game brilliantly well after that period. I did have us down for a 3-1 win, actually. So Eric Dyer owes me one, actually, because sticking in his own back of his own net weren't very good. But yeah, I mean, I'm really, really pleased. That seems to be, one of Ndombele or Gio or Daly in that number 10 role. But that, for me, that 4-2-3-1 and the team that he played yesterday seems to be our best 11. Yeah, really pleasing. I think the only criticism I'd say, obviously, you talk about the own goal, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I'd have liked a few more efforts. There's quite a few block shots, though. I think 6 or 7 block shots during the game. So 4 shots on target, 7 attempts outside of that as well, plus the block shots also. So I think we played well. I think we ran the game, and it was a little bit squeaky bum time, wasn't it? Let's be brutally honest about it. When Eric Dyer sticks in the back of his net, but other than that, I think from start to finish, other than what the first, you have to say the first 15 minutes or so, they had the game. Other than that, I thought we done really, really well with it, to be fair.
Yeah, it's ironic coming over to you, John, that only Spurs could find themselves with at one point 85% possession, a 2-goal lead, totally dominate the game and have an extra man, yet still a bag of nerves at the end. I mean, you know what it's like writing about the club. Was you ready, John, at one point to think, oh, do I have to change my final edit for this show?
Yeah, it's never safe to start writing a match report on Spurs. Ajax, it works both ways. Obviously, Ajax was a good example, and then the West Ham game last year, where that was no way possible. Yeah, I was never really too nervy once that one goal went in. I mean, because as Lee said, they just controlled the game. Second half was such masterful control, really. I actually think they deserve loads of credit, really, because the way they went into the game, the COVID things, the uncertainty about who was going to play, the atmosphere, it was just sort of written that, Spurs would go under. And, I think 1 minute 48, I don't think anybody expected it to be that quick. But they responded, they got control of the game, they got goals at good times. So, yeah, I think it was a really encouraging win, really.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's one of them where, I mean, let's be honest about it. Going into the game, Newcastle, the almost party atmosphere around there, it was all geared up to be about their special day, obviously, of course, about the takeover. But I mean, overall, Rob, I mean, I thought Kane was magnificent. I thought Ndombele, the penny, looks like to me, is finally dropping. I thought both the fullbacks were much more of a threat, particularly this game. And we do still know there's work to be done defensively. Of course, we see that during that game there's still a lot of work to fine-tune that defence to how we want it. But I mean, I think unquestionably for me, I know what you think, I think that 4-2-3-1 is probably the best way for Nuno to go. But, up to fifth, 2 points behind a team worth hundreds of millions of pounds, much more than we are, probably the best manager also in the world. I mean, I think we would have taken this. I think if you look at where Spurs were at the start of the season, we would definitely take where we are now. I know we should only go, as we say, maybe one game at a time or 1 week at a time. But what did you make of that performance up at St James's Park?
Yeah, I mean, the 4-2-3-1 thing, we obviously saw all pre-season. Nuno was 4-3-3, wasn't he? And trying to deploy Daly on the left side of the midfield three and trying to find the right balance there. And then I think really the game where the system came unstuck was obviously first half Arsenal. I think you could forgive what happened against Chelsea. Chelsea sort of blew Spurs away second half, were very good first half. The Palace game, Nuno talks about the issues he had off the back of it. But I think that first half against Arsenal was a big red flag to play in that system, particularly midfield. And I think, Jamie Carragher, I think, on Monday Night Football did a very good explanation of the gaps that popped up in that midfield that Arsenal were able to exploit so easily. So for me, the big issue for Nuno going into this game, and has been going around, has been how do you sort central midfield? Because I think if he gets the balance there right, the rest of the team, in essence, writes itself. Yes, you could interchange, Dyer for Sanchez or Tanganga for Emerson Royal or Lucas Moura for Bergwijn, but fundamentally that balance in the middle of the pitch is where has been the issue. And obviously he wants to accommodate Daly, he wants Ndombele, but really right now, and I think yesterday's game was another example of it, despite that wobbly start that Lee was talking about, Skip and Højbjerg as the base feels the safest thing. And then Tanguy Ndombele, who at times is not as good on the defensive side of the defensive side of things, can just express himself and do things like he was taking the mick, wasn't he, at points, leading to John Joe Shelvey on cue losing his mind. So it was an enjoyable performance. Obviously, it was nervy at the end, but it feels like that's the system Nuno has to go with for now, and I think he will go with that for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting you bring that up, Rob, because I think a lot of people have been questioning the formation Spurs are playing and the system in which Nuno is setting out the team. Just in terms of, like I say, a flavour of some of our listener questions, I'm going to read some of these out here. Mark Butcher says, this has to be the team in the league from now on. Great game. Unfortunately, Dyer did not make it easy watching the end, but plus Ndombele lasting 90 minutes, a positive. Nicky at Highland Spurs 1 says, 3 points in amongst an absolute mad fanfare of the Toon takeover. Could have been a lot worse after that 100-mile-per-hour start Let's take the positives and move on to the hammers next week. Nathan Lumber says, excellent reaction. Our performance to completely outplay a poor Newcastle side. Felt we should have gone for the jugular and scored maybe 5 or 6 goals in that second half, but seemed content to pass and keep the ball. He does question, do we let that killer finish to teams, or should we be, like I say, hanging on as we are? Michael Bennett says, well done to Regulon and Dyer for their quick actions today. We are going to bring it up in the show. Great to see a Spurs team dominating the ball, especially in that second half, and the scoreline definitely did not flatter Spurs. Did Spurs showing a lack of killer instinct in the second half, though, cost us? That seems to be coming up at the moment in terms of Spurs not taking those chances. And again here, Team Fluke says, why don't we punish teams that are not good enough? Continue playing safe and then giving them a chance of getting a result by giving away a silly goal. We were absolutely hammering them the whole game. Let's come over to you, Lee, on that point. I mean, Lee, have you been frustrated by Spurs not taking their chances, not being clinical enough under Nuno so far this season?
Well, I think they were very clinical yesterday because we had 4 shots on target and scored 3 goals. So you can't really say they weren't clinical on that side. But I do get the point. I mean, I think there is a frustration there that we don't go and put teams to the sword, for want of a better expression. They were there for the taking. I mean, some of the defending at the back at times was shambolic, and you just thought to yourself, Tanguy Ndombele had them, didn't he? Let's be honest about it. He had them, and they couldn't handle him in that role. And we did hit the bar as well. We was unlucky with a phenomenal salmon-like leap that we know Lucas can do and hit the bar. So it is a little bit frustrating, but I don't think we created enough clear-cut chances to go and win the game 6-7, 7-1. To be honest, so it's probably about right. The frustration for me was we had the game in control for the second half, but at times you did feel, go on, just go on, have one more gear, and then you might go and score the 4th, and it would be completely done. If you go and score 4, you might end up scoring 5 or 6, right? But we was completely in control of that game until that own goal went in. There was a little bit of panic stations, but other than that, we were completely in control of that game. Like I said, after the first 15 minutes or so. So I think when you look at Nuno, his record as manager, our goal difference is still at a minus. To concede 3 against Palace, 3 against Chelsea, 3 against Arsenal, that's a problem. And we'd only scored singles before then. I think we've only won, the games that we've actually won in the Premier League have only been won single goal margin as well. So, this time last year, I think Sky put a graphic up yesterday. I think this time last season, I think we'd scored 18 goals before yesterday. I think we'd only scored 6. So you look at that and you think, wow, okay, that is probably, you got to think about, Son scored 4 in one match, didn't he, against Southampton, and Kane got all of the assists and all that sort of stuff. So we powered 6 past Manchester United at Old Trafford by this point. So yeah, I mean, I suppose it is a little bit frustrating, but my word, another 3 points under the belt, you go on again. That's two very good performances, or decent performances against the opposition, Villa and Newcastle, and like we said before, we go on to West Ham.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, John Hall says after 2 really positive wins and performances now against Villa and Newcastle, is there a case that negative reaction to Nuno was perhaps a little knee-jerk given the circumstances that he's had to deal with, such as Harry Kane, that disaster international break, the Ndombele situation? John, let's come over to you and ask you that, because that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, as covering the club, it has been a difficult summer in general with Harry Kane, with Tanguy Ndombele, and I'd say with the amount of injuries he's had and having the COVID situation around Romero, Sanchez, Lo Celso. And then, like I say, there's that talk at the moment that, some fans feel with regards to Nuno, the lack of a change yesterday, the lack of a substitution. Can you understand that? Is he being ultra cautious for you, John?
Do you mean in general, or just in terms of not making a sub yesterday?
I just think maybe we'll answer on both really. In general, not making a sub yesterday. Well, what have you made of him so far in terms of the way he's been, like I say, dealt his hand as head coach?
Yeah, well, he spoke before the game about he was 100 days in charge, and he spoke about his ups and downs. And you've listed all those things there. The circumstances he's been dealt really are not favourable. This is, on top of coming in as effectively the 9th choice manager. So he knows that straight away that he wasn't the one that they initially wanted. Harry Kane, that's a massive issue. that I think he actually dealt with really well in the media. I think he kept his dignity, he kept the club's dignity, and he handled that situation really, really well. Yes, there's questions to be asked about the way he set the team up and those performances in those 3 games. Were red flags, but I think he deserves a bit of credit, to be honest. He's had a lot thrown at him, the injuries, like you say, Kane, Tanguy, and like you said at the top of the show, they're in a good position, and that nobody wouldn't have taken this position at the start of the season, especially with some of the games they've had. They've played Chelsea, they've been to Arsenal, they've played Man City. I think it's actually a decent start. Some of the football obviously hasn't been to the taste of most Tottenham fans. I think we can all agree that. But as Rob was saying, the 4-2-3-1 has brought the best 2 performances of the season. So that seems to be the way to go.
Rob, just coming over to you. I mean, this is the thing with Nuno, isn't it? I think at the moment it's still very much, from what I can gauge amongst fans, the jury's still out at the moment. I think there's fans that still need to be convinced in terms of the way Spurs are playing to a certain brand, a certain style, a certain direction of where the club is heading. And like I say, it's just, I think it's difficult at the moment because it is still very early days where he's had a lot of issues, as we've discussed, the Ndombele, the Harry Kane issue, the overriding squad, to then actually try and form a judgment very, very early on. And we're only in October. And if we look at the points at the moment, you'd probably say Spurs are maybe on target for where they would be points-wise. Maybe not performances, but points. What have you made so far of the manager, Rob, for you? Is it too early to form a judgment?
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, 8 Premier League games is a really small sample size, and in those games, Spurs have played, Chelsea and City already, so they've already knocked off a couple of tough fixtures off the fixture list. And I think all the mitigating circumstances that John was mentioning there just highlights how tough it has been. He'll be given, plenty of time to do whatever he wants to do. And what I would say about Nuno, because much has been made of the fact he's a pragmatic coach, I would say almost every time that Wolves played Spurs, that I can remember, commentating on those games after they got up into the Premier League, I was so impressed with Wolves every single time. Not in a, what a plucky underdog performance, aren't they good? What a, wow, they're good performance. A 3-2 win at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where they very much deserved the win that day. Their patterns of play, Matt Doherty, outstanding for them. Jimenez, Diogo Jota just killed Spurs, really. There was the infamous Adama Traore, Jan Vertonghen game where Wolves definitely should have won. There's a few others. They won at Wembley 3-1, came from behind. It was hard to think of. I think the last season for Nuno, because everything went a bit flat, Jimenez's injury, everything sort of took off the shine of what people thought Nuno was. But I think many will. The feeling. Let's not forget how good that feeling was off the back of the City win. It was euphoric, and I think you'll be given the time, and I think you need to let Romero settle, let Emerson Royal settle into the team before casting a major judgment on him.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's so hard because as fans, I say, and we're also very guilty of this. I think straight after a game, Lee, and I know, like I say, this is the thing where we react to this straight after. Emotions are high, our passion is there. We all want to see the club obviously performing well.
You capture that though as well, don't you? You want to see that. That's I think Poch once said it, didn't he? The game is about passion. It's about emotion. Yeah. You want to see that. That kind of element of coming out. Certainly for us, as pure fans, Tottenham Hotspur fans, you want to be able to let that. And there's a lot of frustration in there as well. I mean, I do agree with what Jonathan and Rob have said about Nuno. I've been critical of Nuno. I think setting up in the way that he set up in some of them games was, and he'd probably hold his hands up in private and say he got that wrong. You can't go to Arsenal and just roll over and have your belly tickled. It's one of our biggest games of the season. You can't roll up and do that. And we've got players in the squad and in the team that can go and beat Arsenal. Let's be honest about it. Arsenal, I don't know what the score is at the moment, but I know they're playing Palace and they're 1-0 up. But Arsenal ain't pulling up any trees either this season. So we've gone to their place. We've just rolled over. that said, when we haven't beaten them, I think it's twice at their place in 25 years or 29 years or something ridiculous. So, that's not on Nuno, but the way he set the team up, for example. And again, I agree with Rob. The 4-2-3-1 suits us. I mean, I think all of us think that we're football managers. I know that, I won't say John and Rob will, but certainly me and Rick do. Like when we're sitting here and think, we can play this and we can do that. And I've played around with formations loads of times, having a look. Actually, maybe we can play through at the back with centre backs that we've got and push the the wing backs up higher. But the reality 4-3-3 and how he's worked it. But the 4-2-3-1 does seem to suit our players. It suits our style. It gives us something that we're used to, maybe. And I think that's why we are passionate. And I think I think sometimes Tottenham fans look. I'm not going to get carried away because I'll get thrown at everyone and be like, you're getting carried away, this and other. But I'm just enjoying the fact that we've won 2 football matches. Is that all right? Like we can enjoy the fact that we've won 2 football matches. And we've got a really tough game next in the league. Vitesse Armand and again, everyone thinks that this Europa Conference League is a walkover. And clearly it's not a walkover tournament. Some of these teams that we're playing are decent sides. So it'd be a tough game in midweek, but it'd be a tough game going to West Ham. David Moyes has got them playing really, really well. So, enjoy the fact that we've won a football match in difficult circumstances and remember how we can enjoy watching Tottenham, because I think most of us have forgot.
I totally agree. And you know what's funny? In the build-up to this game, John, coming around to you, social media is in hysterics, right? Or trying to get control of itself because Spurs Twitter at the time, we know that 2 players from the Spurs camp had tested positive for COVID. It was all about, who were those 2 players. And I think it's hard because, there's a responsibility, I suppose, as a journalist that you can't reveal who those players are because obviously for medical record purposes, you're not bound to, right? You're not allowed to do that. So, this is the hard thing, that you're preparing for a game. Everyone wants to know who those players are. And then subsequently, we heard this breaking news, I think, from I might be wrong, but a South Korean source claiming that Son had passed a latter COVID test, which enabled him to play. When you saw the team come out, John, is that what you're roughly expecting now? Do you think Nuno is starting to know his team now? Of course, he said there was big issues, but in that team, of course, we had Son starting the game, Harry Kane, of course. We had, of course, as well the centre-back partnership of Eric Dyer. And, of course, next to him, Christian Romero. We did obviously see the likes of Lo Celso, Emerson Royale. Emerson Royale actually in the team as well. Roughly, was that you expecting in terms of that team, John?
Yeah, so obviously in the press conference, Nuno said he would like to pick the same start 11 as against Villa. But he had big shoes and he wouldn't be able to do that. Then later that day, we got wind of the COVID. I think everybody read who they thought he was on Twitter, as you mentioned, and then the news came out that night that it was actually true, and then next day there was a false positive and everything. So I think once we knew there was a false positive, I think we knew what the team would be, and it does look like Nuno is heading towards his strongest 11, his first choice 11. I think yesterday that's the team that most people would have picked. I guess when Bergwijn comes back fit, it's between him and Moura. But I think certainly on the last 2 performances, the Premier League team picks itself.
Yeah, we also did see, like you said there, Bergwijn and Davis returned from injury and they took their place amongst the subs. I thought what was quite interesting was that, coming around to you, Rob, we saw Romero and Emerson having to play again just 2 days after, turn out for their countries. And I think, like John says there, I think Nuno is starting now to get to know what his preferred first 11 is. Do you think in his mind he knows that now, Rob? Of course, obviously Bergwijn has got to come back from injury. Has he got a fair idea now, bearing in mind he's been in the job for a good 3-4 months now? He'll know his first 11, roughly.
Well, barring injury or something else, if that wasn't the 11 versus West Ham, I'd be stunned if, maybe there's a little tweak here or there. Lucas Moura maybe had too many minutes in the week against Vitesse. He played Bergwijn, but Lucas Moura was tremendous. His run for the 3rd goal was excellent. I think, I think Nuno knows what he wants. And look, this is relatively far away from what he was doing pre-season, in part because he didn't have all the players for pre-season. But it was supposed to be this 4-3-3 thing, and because Kane wasn't around yet back with England anyway after reaching the Euro final, we had this very dynamic front 3 of Bergwijn, Lucas and Son. who were excellent against City. And then suddenly it was like, okay, well, this could be life after Kane if Kane, Kane obviously subsequently revealing he was going to stay. But I think the 4-2-3-1 works well. I think in terms of what's in the squad at the moment, maybe a little bit light now in a additional midfielder who could play in the two. So I think you're probably looking at Skip and Højbjerg as the first choice pairing, and then Winks, and then who? I don't think he'd use Daly in that position really in the Premier League. And then that adds another question for Nuno in terms of that position behind Kane, because now you have three players who want to play in that position. And I think I've got this right. I think all of them started against Chelsea. I think Gio started right wing. I think Tanguy and Daly both played in midfield alongside Højbjerg. But now it looks like only one will play. So maybe there's a little bit of a balance issue there in terms of what Nuno can do with his team. But I think it's pretty set. And I think, even though Christian Romero, I think he was beaten far too easily for the opening goal. I think the whole team was blown away by the energy of St James's Park in those opening moments. He only looks class, doesn't he? I think we're seeing a lot with his range of passing, a throwback to Toby, that he's certainly probably Spurs' first choice centre back. But quickly on Dyer, I know he sort of gave everyone that little heart attack at the end. But Eric Dyer was, I thought, tremendous throughout the game. Yeah, and I wasn't, at times I felt last season he didn't have the best of days. There were goals where a low cross would be swept into the area, he'd leave the ball, someone would score back post. But I thought he was excellent yesterday, and looks probably his most comfortable since the start of last season, when him and Toby and Højbjerg had that nice little defensive three thing going on.
Yeah, just on that, if I can, Mick, just because I think you make a really good point, Bob, about Dyer. The problem that most of us have got with Dyer is that he does seem to have a mistake in him. And even though he was excellent against Manchester United last season, absolutely outstanding, gave the penalty away. And then we ended up drawing 1-1. If you remember, it's just a I don't know, lack of concentration or something that happens from him. And then obviously, we saw it again yesterday. And sometimes, or a majority of the time, when Eric Dyer makes a mistake, it's a costly mistake because of the possession that he plays, right? It's like a goal kick making a mistake. Inevitably, it ends up being a goal. So that's the bit that he just, and it's really difficult. So I totally agree with you. I thought he was excellent. I thought he was excellent against Aston Villa as well, to be fair. But there's the element of it. And, when you look at Villa's goal that they scored, you could have a look at Romero, because he come out, didn't he, flying out for a challenge, and then he left the hole, and then people saying, oh, it was Dyer, but actually it was a Romero. Romero got lost. He lost it. He actually looks over his shoulder. If you think he looks over his shoulder, he thinks he knows where his man is, and then he drops him, and then his man just gets in front of him and beats him to the header. So I agree that although Romero looks class and brilliant, he's got to work on that side of things, and Dyer just needs to get rid of them mistakes. One mistake a game is sometimes too much. And yesterday it didn't cost us, but it easily could have. If that was a tight 2-1 game and all of a sudden they go 2-2 and the crowd's up for the last 10 minutes, that is a completely different football match. So just needs to eradicate that, doesn't he? I don't know how he does it, but, he has been very good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Lee, I just wanted to pick up actually on the opening goal, which John, I think, and Rob mentioned in reference to there, because I think the thing going into this game is, and it didn't take a brain surgeon to work this out, that Newcastle were going to be up for this, right? Have just been taken over. You can imagine that the wall of noise around that stadium and the way they kind of made it a real carnival atmosphere. Anyone would tell you, Steve Bruce, I don't think even had to do a team talk because they were going to come out of the blocks flying. I think what was so frustrating is that we all knew this, right? As Spurs fans, we know this. And it's like we almost kind of read the script as being the fairy tale start. And it's almost like we just gave it to them. And I just couldn't quite believe that, bearing in mind that we knew we'd be under pressure, it was the manner of the goal. The fact that, Emerson, who I thought has been a good signing so far since he's come to the club, was at fault for giving the ball away poorly. The midfield not tracking back to cover, the overlap on Reguilon. And like you said there, Romero not good enough for getting in front of Wilson. Who may I just had Romero, as Rob said. I think Romero's going to be a fantastic player for us.
Too.
But like every player, there is stuff to work on here to improve, isn't there? How frustrated was you by that goalie?
Yeah, it was frustrating because it almost done us a favour in the same way as well, because it was so early. We had the whole virtually 90 minutes to try and sort ourselves back out, which we did. So that was great. And I think Jamie Redknapp said pre-commentary that first 20 minutes you've got to cool the crowd down and that type of stuff. And we're giving them adding fuel to the fire after 2 minutes. I mean, you couldn't make this up. So it was frustrating. And actually, when you analyse, like you just said, the goal and what Rob said as well, Romero did lose. Like I say, he did look over his shoulder. He spotted his man and then let him go. It was a little bit a bundling type challenge, wasn't it, from Emerson Royale to give away the ball in the first place and let them come at us. But it was also a good move, to be fair to them. The overlapping run from their fullback, I can't remember his name, was really good. And I think that Reguilon over on that side, when that ball came down, he didn't really know where to go. He couldn't go with a runner because he would have the man with the ball or was covering the man with the ball. So it was difficult to try and stop the cross from coming in from that side. They couldn't do anything about it. So look, credit to Newcastle. They started really well, and it was a good goal from their perspective. But yeah, I mean, I think we could have defended it better. I'm trying to. I don't want to make myself look silly here, and obviously got loads of comments in the set. I make myself look silly every week, so it don't really matter. But I don't think we actually started that badly. Like to be honest, it wasn't as if
apart from the goal was all right.
That's what I mean. That's what I was saying about looking silly because they obviously scored. But actually, after they scored, it wasn't as if it was a siege mentality and they were going at us. Give you statistics. They had one shot on target the whole game. One shot. So, the stats tell a part of a story there. Hugo Lloris didn't have anything to do the whole game other than pick the ball out of the back of net after 2 minutes. So, I don't think we was under siege mentality after they scored that one goal. But could it have been avoided? Yeah. And I think that's the key thing with Tottenham. Whilst we're still, you want to use the rebuild, you want to use kind of, momentum, you want to use kind of getting used to still work in progress, whatever term you want to use. The fact of the matter is, it always feels like that we're never quite there. We're always having to work towards something, and maybe that's the stage that we're at. But you're right. There's improvements to be made with Dyer still. There's improvements to be made with Emerson Royale. You said it yourself, and Romero. They both just travelled back from South America, about 20 minutes before the game started. So obviously being facetious, but so there is some give in that, and you've got. Yeah. I'd rather look at it on the positive rather than the negative and say, look, fair play to them, lads. They stepped up, they got picked, they played predominantly well. I thought Emerson didn't have as good as game as he did against Villa, but I thought Romero was outstanding after that goal.
Yeah. John, just coming over to you, I think trying to be on a positive, what has impressed me is that the fact that although Spurs have given away leads in the last couple of games, they have fought back, they have come back into games, and this was no different. A player that I think, to be fair, is definitely... I would say the word polarised opinion. I know Ali Gold says he's got a membership club for him. That's Tanguy Ndombele. It was a lovely equaliser from Ndombele, to be fair. He kind of a lovely curling shot from Reguilon's inside pass. And he almost kind of passed it into the right-hand post. Where are you, John, for you on the enigma of Tanguy Ndombele? Because as a player to write about, I mean, he must give you all different kinds of, different kinds of content. I mean, great finish. Tell us what you make of him.
Well, Ali is... the chairman of Tonguy's sports club. I'm vice chairman. It's just absolutely brilliant. As a player to watch, it's just absolutely brilliant. Some of the things that he's capable of, the pirouettes, the way he gets out of situations, so like with his low gravity, you think, how has he done that? So as a player, it's great to watch. He's also frustrating because he'll do something amazing, and then for the next 5 minutes, he'll be strolling around, catching his breath sort of thing. It looked like his time at the club was over in the summer. I think if Spurs could have found a buyer for him, they would have done. But look, it seems to me like Nuno has found his best position now. He's more effective higher up the pitch. He can affect the game like he did yesterday. He can create, he can score. So we've just got to keep him happy, keep him fit, and keep him playing like that.
Agree. I mean, Rob, let's get your thoughts on Ndombele because, he's a player that, when I speak to so many Spurs fans, they say, if only we can get this guy fit. Well, I'll tell you what, he did play 97 minutes yesterday. Not just the 90, he added 7 onto that. So, we are getting there slowly with Ndombele in terms of getting that fitness up. And I think Nuno is really trying to get him back, to where we want him to be as a player. But, he did get Spurs back in the game. I think much of what they did came through the Frenchman in terms of this one. He was in a much more advanced central role. He toyed with Newcastle on several occasions, covered plenty of ground in what I would describe to be, and I people get ready for this, I thought it was quite an energetic performance from Ndombele. What did you think of it, Rob?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, Ricky, because there was points where he was, when Spurs had those periods where they felt they were in control in the second half, and they were in control, where he was dropping so deep, he just wanted to get on every other pass. Do you remember those moments where he was just linking it, give it to me, I'll do something, step over, bang, go. The moment by the corner flag where he just sort of danced around them for a few minutes. But, I think there's a real... Oh, it was brilliant, wasn't it? But it
really was.
But I think there's a real similarity to the Manchester United Pogba issue in a sense, because what Tanguy Ndombele is this unbelievably creative player who you want to see, who will do magical things, that will win you games, that will pull you back into games. But on the defensive side of things, he probably doesn't have it. And, I commentated on Leicester Man United at the weekend as well. Pogba doesn't have it. And I think what happens is you look at the money that is spent on these two players and you say, well, they should be able to do both sides of it. A proper central midfielder can win the ball back, can read the play, intercept passes, and also ping a 40-yard diagonal and score from 20 yards and all the rest of it. We just need to ignore the price that Tanguy cost. And I think this was an issue for Jose Mourinho. He couldn't get his head around what Tanguy was and was like, I will turn this guy into one of the two midfielders with Højbjerg. And he did try and do it. But the reality is I don't think Tanguy's that player. He just isn't. If you're going to play a team, you're going to completely dominate. You can probably afford to have him in the midfield too. The reality is he's the spark for unbelievably unusual moments. And actually the Villa game, I don't think he played that well. The Villa game, I thought he was a bit off. His passing was a bit short. And suddenly that dribble, do you remember the dribble?
Yeah.
Right side of the box, weaved it, nearly scored, and suddenly it would have been the story. But I think if you speak to any Spurs fan who's seen him for the last 2 years, who's been dreaming that he'll live up to the expectation everyone has, you want him in the team. People will say, well, he has to start.
Yeah.
He has to start. So he's the most fun player to watch probably in the team, isn't he?
I mean, you've given us some great commentary lines on as well, Rob, to be fair. The goal up at Sheffield United, that goal he scored, and your commentary for that one. I mean, he does give you, as a commentator, he can give you absolute moments of just some unbelievable moments. Isn't
Ricky,
it?
even his debut. He popped one in from 25 yards to spark the turnaround. But I think we just need to accept what he is, ignore what he cost. Jonathan would know. Is he still? He's still the record signing, isn't he? I think still the club record signing. I think. Tom
still record signing.
Yeah. Just need to forget it. Forget what is he now? What is he right now? He's the most creative player in the whole squad, and he's the one when they interview the players and go, "Who's the best player you've ever seen in training?" And they all go, "Moussa Dembele used to do stuff that blew our brains."
Yeah.
And they go, "And who's it now?" "Oh, it's Tanguy."
Yeah.
So, I think he just needs to play in that advanced position, not be given the opportunity to, lose a runner like he did for the goal against Rennes, or not mark his guy properly as he did against Wolves. I'll forgive him for the giving away the ball goal against Wolves. That's just, if you can ask him to do that, it's going to happen occasionally.
Yeah.
He's going to give the ball away.
Yeah, I think like you just said there, Rob, you've got to know what he is as a player. And once you accept what he is, then, everyone can be better for it. Harry Kane, coming over to you, Lee. I think, again, it's a player, you have to accept what he's about, Harry Kane. It's about the goals. And I think, to be fair for Harry, I think this could be, I reckon, the turning point for him this season. Because I think had that decision not gone his way in terms of VAR, I think, again, that would have been another, a real, again, a difficult one to take. But to be fair, I thought the finish from Kane was just, Kane-esque, if I can call it that, because it was just an absolutely beautiful, lovely little flick. It was deft as well. It flicked over Darlow from Højbjerg's pass, which I must say, Højbjerg's pass was absolutely exceptional. I know initially flagged it was obviously for offside. Given that VAR review, Spurs actually turned the game around in what I would actually describe it as two great moments.
Yeah, I agree. It's really interesting. Just quickly on Tanguy, if I may, because I don't big up Tanguy Ndombele that often, because I don't talk about him that much. I just leave it to everybody else to talk about, because I think he's been a little bit of an enigma. Since he's joined the football club, I think everyone knows how good he could be, or we think we know how good he could be, but he's never on the pitch. I think he'd done 111 minutes or whatever it might have been yesterday, with all the added on and all that sort of stuff. So it was brilliant. And actually, he scored against Wolves in the cup, and I actually posted it from his Instagram saying, not my best game tonight. And I thought he was talking about yesterday. So I put it on Twitter saying, oh, not. And then I got pointed out a few times, to be fair. Thank you, Chris, by the way, to tell me that it wasn't from yesterday. Anyway, the point being is that he scored a very similar goal. He like leaning back and like putting it in, even when he scored against Villa, Rob, that you touched upon on his debut. And then yesterday again, kind of leaning back when you're always told to don't lean back when you score, and he's leaning back. It just sometimes looks quite awkward. Like when he's running, looks like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and you think to yourself, is he going to fall over? And he keeps the ball like unbelievable. I mean, I thought it was excellent yesterday, and Rob touched upon it. That skill in the corner flag was just like I was like, what? It blew my mind. I thought it was superb. So reminiscent of Timothy Atuba back in the day when he's like trying to take people on.
We are going back there, aren't we? My God, yeah. Newcastle United away. We are going back to Timothy Atuba.
Sure. But coming back to the main man, never been worried about Harry Kane. You know my thoughts on him. You know the information that we talked about over the summer, and all of that escapades and all that sort of stuff that he's done. He's ironically scored 10 goals this season. It's quite mental that he scored 10 goals. Everyone says, when you write off Harry Kane, it's just like, you're making yourself look silly, because at the end of the day, the guy is one of the best, in my opinion, just my humble opinion. He's the best striker in the world, and he's just absolutely outstanding. And yesterday was a perfect example of that. I mean, he was miles onside as well. When they flagged offside, I was thinking, it's just going to be really tight. And then as soon as they put a graphic up, you was like, oh, yeah, he's miles onside. So that was brilliant. The best thing about him scoring yesterday for me was the players celebrating with him. I absolutely loved it. They all went over to him. They're banging on the air.
They looked so pleased for him.
It was really pleasing, Rick, to see that. Lots of people talking and writing, and us talking about stuff. Is he all right in the dressing room? Do his teammates want him there? Does he want to be there? But you could see that had been bothering him, and his teammates knew it, and they all ran over and they all batted him on the head. And I love that. I love to see that. It was very, very together. And it was a brilliant performance again. I had him down for 2 goals actually yesterday, but he got his assist rather than the third. And again, I'm sure we'll come on to it. Don't want to steal the thunder, but what an outstanding third team goal, our third goal.
Champagne,
brilliant goal. And again, Kane completely involved in that as well. So I thought it was excellent yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, John, coming around to you, I think with regards to Kane, it has been a difficult season, to watch him as a Spurs fan and all the speculation, of course, over the summer. And I think Ali picked up on this yesterday. That was possibly the strangest Spurs goal celebration of a VAR era, because the team had lined up for the free kick. They didn't expect the decision to be reversed. And do you know what annoys me about Spurs sometimes is that why do they not appeal more? It really boggles my mind that a decision like that where it looked like a hair's breadth, and we're not even appealing. We're just accepting it. Okay, it's offside. We're going back. We're not even attempting to try and reverse the decision. But I think overall, John, Kane for you. Are we seeing the Harry Kane that we all know now in a Spurs shirt?
Yeah, I mean the saying is, form is temporary, class is permanent, and like Lee just said, anybody who writes Harry Kane off is going to end up looking like a mug, because he's going to score goals, for him in any team, and he's going to score goals. So it was always going to be a matter of time. Look, he's said that there's been no hangover from what happened to him in the summer with City. That's up for debate. I think that has to be at some point, because I think in his mind, rightly or wrongly, he thought he was going to leave. So the fact he hasn't, that's going to have some effect. I think also the fact that he played until July the 12th, I think it was. He obviously captained England. He said before that he puts country before club, so that was an emotional time for him. Losing the finals probably hit him really, really hard, and he's come back late for training, so he's already on the back foot. And plus, then you've got the game against Palace, the game against Chelsea, where Spurs just didn't create anything, so he's not going to score when he doesn't touch the ball. But I think it comes back to the 4-2-3-1. Second half at Arsenal, he's had 2 or 3 chances that he would normally score. And from that point, second half against Arsenal, Villa, he could have scored 3 or and then yesterday he looked, sharp in front of goal. So, yeah, it was always going to be a matter of time until he came good. I think we just got a sort of a mentality in this country where we have something good, and I guess I'm in the industry that is responsible for it, but we have something good, and we want to bring them down. So the coverage of his performance against Hungary for England was, very strange again, because he played in a team that didn't pass to him. So yeah, he was always going to come good, and he's a guy who once he scores one, he'll go on a run. So I can easily see him scoring against West Ham next week, and then get 20 goals again for sure.
We most certainly hope so. We do. Rob, come around to you. What I'm intrigued to ask you, Rob, is as a commentator, does it take the edge off now that when you're going there, you're giving it everything about the commentary of a goal, and suddenly you've got a VAR review, and it must be so hard for you now commentating on games where you're not even sure if the goal is going to count, or if it does count, you've then got to I suppose get excited again about the goal after it's initially been ruled out. I mean, what's that like for you in the role that you're doing now as a commentator?
Yeah, well, I've sort of changed my attitude to it, Ricky, because what was happening was, especially working for Spurs TV, the goals live way beyond when they first go on the website and everything. They're just used forever. So if you go, Kane might be off, blah, 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 the goal's dead. So I just go big, 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 wait and see if they disallow it, which I did yesterday because he looked onside to me in real time. I didn't think he was off. I thought at least one of the Newcastle defenders was playing him on. It was Javi Manquillo at right back. But then there was a nice moment yesterday where, because we get the VAR feed and we knew it was a goal, but the players didn't. And I think you probably had it on Sky anyway, where you're like, tell the players, and then you see Reguilon spring over to Kane, and they sort of get that moment again. But it was a lovely finish from Kane. I think all of his goals actually this season have been pretty natural finishes. Most of them have been against weaker opposition. We know that. But had a stat that I forgot to use actually now in the commentary, that in 15-16, I think it was, he started like this, didn't score in his opening 6, and then finished with 25 or 27 or something. So nothing to really worry about, I don't think.
Got 29 that season. Well,
29
in the Premier League,
So nothing,
What are we worried about?
Just to interact on it, I've done all the stats on it. In 7 seasons, he's averaged in his first 6 games, because it was at that point where he's only played 6 games. He averaged 2 goals in the first 6 games in the Premier League. And when you're bearing in mind all the things, Jonathan, you just talked about in terms of the pre-season and all that sort of stuff, and the final hitting him hard, he didn't even play the first 2 Premier League games either. He wasn't even selected. He weren't even in the country. So but he's actually only been played 5 against that 6, and now he's scored 1 already. So I'm never worried about Harry Kane. The mentality of the guy, even if half of him was in Manchester or whatever it might be, he's still always going to give his all. This is his boyhood club as well. He's always going to give his all, regardless of who he's playing for, because he's a professional in my opinion, from head to toe. So, I think, I still think he'll end up being top goal scorer. Personally, I do, because again, I want to look at it positively. I think how many goals who's top goal scorer at the moment? Is it Salah? Is Salah up there at the moment?
Yeah, I think Salah's
Vardy, isn't it? I think they're both,
you're right. Yeah,
7 maybe.
7
Vardy,
Vardy. Yeah,
couple of hat tricks, he'd be all right.
He doesn't really score them anymore, Lee. I mean, he got one obviously. When did he get one recently?
Yeah, he got one the other week, didn't he?
He got one in the Conference League, and he got one against Maccabi last season. But other than that, he hasn't been scoring hat tricks for Spurs.
Well, I'll tell you what, Rob, if he wants to score braces between now and the end of the season every game, we'll be more than happy about that. I tell you.
BW on screen there makes a really good point. He did have a smile on his face, and it is so. I don't know, Jonathan, and Rob, you're in and around the game all of the time. Do you think that is important to have? Any workplace you're going into, if you're enjoying it, if you've got a smile on your face, if you're going in an upbeat mood, you're probably going to give, even if it's an extra 1 or 2%. And at this level, at elite level, fine margins isn't all the time. So if we can get an extra 1% because he's smiling, that's happy days, isn't it? Do you think that makes a difference? When you're going in with that sort of attitude in?
What do you reckon, John? Does it make a difference?
Yeah, I think you're right. And just going back to my point earlier, I think, the longer away we get from what happened in the summer, the less it's going to be an issue for him. His sort of mind is clear now. He knows the situation, and like I say, if he's scoring, if Harry Kane is scoring goals, then he's a happy guy, and he's going to be smiling. So like I said earlier, I think just you watch him kick on now. He will score 20 goals, 20 league goals this season. Absolutely no problems whatsoever.
Totally agree. Rob, do you agree on that with Lee? Always about a smile? Is it all about smiling?
I think helping playing with him in Son probably helps, doesn't it? Because like Sonny's always smiling. There was a great moment where I think Sonny crossed it near post and Kane didn't attack it or something like that. And there was a close up of Sonny and he just goes, H, like that. Just where were you kind of thing. I think there's still a lot of good feeling in that group. And Harry Kane was obviously feeling great in December of last year when it looked like Spurs might have an unlikely title challenge. They were top of the Premier League and he was banging in goals and assisting goals and everything. We know he's the kind of guy who does look at individual records. He'll openly talk about that kind of thing. I'm sure, if he ends up staying at Spurs for even longer than this season, it's Jimmy Greaves. He's after that. But no, he looks happy and he just needs to find his footing. It's been mitigating circumstances, but we all know he's one of the best in the world.
Oh, man, totally agree. Well, for our listeners on audio, we are going to go for a short break. Take you into this break, you're going to hear from Nuno Espirito Santo and Harry Kane giving their thoughts on post-match reaction to Tottenham Hotspur beating Newcastle United at the weekend. When we return, we'll be discussing, like I say, that really, really scary scenes at St James's Park of a fan going into cardiac arrest. The brilliant work of Eric Dyer, Sergio Reguilon, actually the whole Spurs squad, and amongst Newcastle as well, the way everybody rallied together there. And as we know, I think the fan, thankfully, is now awake and responsive in hospital. So we wish them all the best on behalf of the whole team here at the Last Word on Spurs. And of course, we'll be discussing some of the players' performances. Do not go anywhere. And of course, we've got Vitesse to come as well. We'll be back after this very, very short break. For our watching audience on YouTube, I think we've got nearly over 300 of you watching us live on a night where our rivals are playing. So thank you so much for turning that off. Turning us on if you've got us on the audio and you've muted that game. I don't blame you at all. What you're doing with yourselves, thank you so much. We're going to get into the second half of the show now because, like I say, there was a massive delay to the game, of course, when we saw really scary scenes at St James's Park. A fan, going into cardiac arrest. Eric Dyer demanding that a defibrillator was to be rushed to the stands due to the medical emergency. We then saw Sergio Reguilon initially get the referee's attention and order the match to be stopped. As we said there, it was great to see the Spurs lads coming together, the way they responded to that situation. I'm sure we all feel very proud by the way they reacted. Because like I say, I think, Lee, that kind of incident, I think it puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? We get all carried away in the anything about football, we get so involved in the game that sometimes, taking a step back like that, it was a really, really scary moment, wasn't it?
Well, absolutely, and it seems that Tottenham, for better or for worse, seem to be involved in these types of incidents. Obviously, we had in the Euros one of our ex-players, one of the legends at our football club, Christian Eriksen. Obviously, happened to him. David Ginola has had his own problems as well. I was at White Hart Lane when Fabrice Mwamba went down on the pitch, which was massively scary. I was in the South Stand, the old South Stand, and we were up in the second tier, and we couldn't really understand what was happening. Like, it was the first time we'd ever seen anything like that. I can't remember what year it was. I'm sure one of you boys might remember, but we were there and we were thinking, oh, come on, get on with it. Oh, get up. As you would, you think, it's just. And all of a sudden, he weren't moving, and it's very, very scary. The way that they, the medical professionals that day, obviously with Christian Eriksen as well, and of course yesterday. And again, Crackers makes a fantastic point there as well. Justin Edwards Foundation is doing some outstanding work with defibrillators, trying to get them into all of the key venues, because there is absolutely no doubt that the defibrillator saved that fan's life yesterday. There's no doubt about it. The medical professional that actually was in the crowd said, I saw an interview with him, and he came out and said, actually, if that guy was at home, he might not have made it. But actually, the fact that he was there and there was the defibrillator on hand, if you like, probably saved his life. So, very, very scary. And it does put it into perspective that, the guy's just gone to a football match. I mean, I'll share something quite personal with you all now. I was at the Real Madrid game, Tottenham versus Real Madrid, and I'd had a few beers and I'd had a few espressos, or I do like a coffee like in the day. And I went a bit mad, and when the third goal went in, I went absolutely like mad, like the whole crowd did, and so on and so forth. It put my heart out that night. It put my heart. I didn't have a cardiac arrest or anything like that, but it put my heart out into a different rhythm. And I actually had to go and have some treatment and all that sort of stuff. So it is very, very scary that things like just a few beers, or just getting overexcited and that sort of stuff, and just going to a football match can actually do something like that with So just be careful out there, to everybody. Genuine, serious message. Just be careful of what you're doing and stuff. My thoughts are with him. I'm really pleased that he's going to make seemingly a full recovery. So well done to everyone involved.
Yeah, just on Cracker's point there, in terms of the Justin Edinburgh Foundation, we've actually got Charlie who's actually recorded a very nice piece that you're going to hear during this show, just in terms of the work the foundation are doing behind the defibrillators. So you're going to hear that, like I say, in one of the ad breaks. I just want to bring it back to the football, John, because at Spurs, we did score straight after that restart. It was actually a brilliant move from Tottenham. Lucas played it into Ndombele, who then turned superbly, got it back from the Brazilian. He beats the man, plays it through to Kane, and he hit across to Son to slide into the back post. Now, I can tell you, John, and you know this as well, if we're scoring goals like that every week, then I think Nuno, it'd be Nuno ball, not Nuno out. Do you know what I mean? It was a lovely move from Tottenham. I mean, what did you make of that goal?
Yeah, really good goal. Dynamic movement from Lucas. That's what he does so well. His ability. It's from sort of like almost a standing start, just to burst past players. He played a good ball into Kane, and then the only one outcome from when Kane got the ball. Came straight after the stoppage. Don't know how much that affected things. Might hit Newcastle a bit harder, I guess, just because of the circumstances and everything. The atmosphere might have been a bit flat, but Spurs were actually on top before that. They were really pressing for that third goal before the stoppage. So yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, Spurs fans crave attacking, sort of like fast one-touch football, and for that goal, you got it. So yeah, great goal.
I totally agree. I mean, Rob, as I keep referring to this, as a commentator, I mean, that, I think for me as a Spurs fan, that's the dream goal to be commentating on, because the movement, the one-touch football, we can call it liquid champagne football. It was such a lovely move. It was two lovely bits of skill from both Ndombele and Lucas, who played that ball into Kane behind again. His low cross there, touchdown from Son. And I think the way the team celebrated that moment, you could just sense, that was a lovely, lovely goal. And, if we're scoring goals like that all the time, as I said to Jonathan, there's not much to complain about for getting the results, right?
No, it was a lovely move, obviously, and it was nice to see all of that front four combined so fluidly. Like, I was trying to find like an acronym for, like a desk kind of thing. But there's nothing.
We need to find something. We need to create one, Rob. I think we need to.
Well,
get
I was
like,
back. I was texting Ben, who presents N17, and I was like, so like Son, Lucas, and Ndombele, Kane, like slank. That was slank was the best I could get. So
maybe we get going. We could try. And
I don't think slank's going to catch on. But it was a really nice goal. I think I think part of the issue when you're a Spurs fan, you see that goal, you're like, that feels like the team. The potch, the free flowing, the lovely goals like that. And I think what Spurs fans have found difficult in the last couple of years is accepting that team is no more. And that Spurs have now dropped a level below Chelsea, Liverpool and City. Chelsea, Liverpool and City are doing something else. And I think it's hard not to lament that the 15, 16, 17 Spurs teams were competing at that level, were playing at that level, were scoring goals the way that, Salah, Mane and Firmino are combining all this stuff. But when that's why it's nice to see little moments like that goal yesterday. And you want to see more of it. All those guys on the same wavelength, understanding the off-the-ball movement. And nice to see Kane and Son linking up for a 35th Premier League goal together. One away from the record from Lampard and Drogba. So yeah, great stuff.
And I must just say, because we're getting loads of comments bombarded here, so we are totally aware that Crystal Palace are beating Arsenal by 2-1. If that result takes a miraculous turn, you will never hear this in this show. We'll somehow have to delete it out. But yes, Crystal Palace are beating Arsenal. You heard it here first.
He's been a good signing, isn't he? Just quickly, he's been a good signing. Comes off for his debut, Edouard. He scores 2 against us, and now he's scored again tonight, which hopefully will be the winner for them. Yeah. So yeah, he's they took a bit of a gamble on him, didn't they? Coming from Celtic, but he's done pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, we don't do strikers, do we, Lee? That's the problem with us. We just
don't
do
do
one.
strikers.
So yeah, we don't do strikers. No,
No
defenders got plenty of them. Midfielders got a load of them. Strikers not around here. No, not a chance.
Don't need strikers. Don't need strikers.
Oh, bringing it back to the game, we saw John Joe Shelvey get sent off for Newcastle in what was a really silly challenge for bringing down Reguilon cynically after a similarly cynical challenge on Ndombele earlier. So Newcastle going down to 10, but Spurs, as we said earlier, still making life so difficult for themselves as they would always do. Eric Dyer putting a ball into his own net, completely by himself, my ad. I didn't see a Newcastle shirt inside. No. So
the thing is about that, Rick, as well, with Eric Dyer. Just quickly on Reggie, I thought he played. I thought he was excellent yesterday. It was one of his best games, personally. I thought he played, and he was very clever to get that free kick because he done what you'd want everybody to do is run across his man, which is exactly what he did. And John shows himself he had no choice. I think that's the second time he's got sent off in a Newcastle shirt, against Tottenham. So you couldn't make it up. Completely mental. With Eric Dyer, and this comes back to the point that Rob and I were talking about right at the beginning on Eric Dyer with their mistakes. Thanks, BW. Is that he actually gave away the free kick as well. I mean, you could not make this stuff up. So not only did he score an own goal, but he actually gave away the free kick that led to him scoring the own goal when there was no one about, no one around him, as you said. So, it's just little things like that we've got to get out. I remember, who doesn't remember, 3-0 up, 8 minutes to go against West Ham. I think it was on this day.
It was. It's the worst thing, isn't it? Yeah,
West Ham started tweeting about it earlier.
Yeah.
But the point is that the goals that we were conceding were coming in from free kicks in and around them both of them areas. I think we conceded that. I think we've done a show on it, Rick, didn't we? We conceded Newcastle, that Eric Dyer handball from Everton into the box. Everton from a free kick into the box. West Ham from a free kick into the box and exactly the same way. Brighton from a free kick into. I mean, you couldn't make the stuff up. It was literally the whole time. So we just need to get that out of us. Maybe it's us, Rick. Maybe we're reminding everybody that we keep giving away these free kicks.
The worst thing is how we remembered those 4 isolated goals out of the box. That's what worries me.
Yeah, because just in them instance from last year, that was probably about 9 points. I think it was 8 or 9 points or so. Yeah. That gets you in the top 4. So you know what I mean? It's a interesting. Same referee too. Nice one, Crackers.
Can't believe it.
Yeah.
Madness.
So, getting them sort of little silly mistakes out of Eric Dyer's game, and I think he can be. I think he can be immense. What I quickly want to say on Eric as well, because I think it feels like I've given him a bit of a hard time, and I agree with Rob. I thought it was excellent. When he played in central midfield in the Poch days, I think he made his debut, didn't he, against West Ham, scored the winner in the 92nd minute. He played right back that day, and then they dropped him into central midfield, and he played as a central midfield player. And he looked like a beast, didn't he? He was either with Musa or he was with Wanyama, and he was very, very good, like dropping in as a third centre back, a little bit like what the Højbjerg role's been when you was talking Rob earlier about that triangle, but now Eric's got to take that on himself as a central defender, and there's more responsibilities. He hasn't got Jan Vertonghen or Toby Alderweireld to bail him out if he makes a mistake. He's got to do it himself. So I don't know. I don't know what you lads think. What do you lads think? Do you think he can be that man for the rest of the season?
Well, John, it's interesting. I mean, John, just coming around to you. When you look at Dyer's game there, essentially, he had a couple of static moments which the Newcastle attackers played on. But I thought, as a whole, he was solid. But again, he managed to, which what Dyer does a lot, he manages to ruin all his hard work by a moment of erraticness. Can you understand that, John? Will he ever be for you that transformative defender we want him to be next to Romero? Because for me personally, I just don't see that happening. I still feel Spurs need to go out and buy a centre-back alongside him. What do you think?
First of all, I think I'm just going to cut a little bit of slack with a goal because, it looks horrendous. But the ball actually came over Romero and he couldn't see it, and he got himself in a bit of a mess. So it was unfortunate. It wasn't that bad play. But I think your overall point, yes. I think, no. I don't think Dyer is the long-term solution for centre-half. I think he's been there long enough now. I actually agree. I thought he played really well yesterday. I think he's generally started the season well. He started last season well. And then, as the guys were saying earlier, there's always a mistake in him. It's usually high profile. It usually costs a goal. I'm thinking the Chelsea penalty when he just took down Werner last season. The game at Leeds where there were two in like a few minutes. So you sort of think they haven't ironed themselves out of his game yet. Are they ever going to? I don't know. But if he can sort of continue the form he's had this season, maybe. But I still think Spurs really need to invest in a guy who's going to be able to play next to Romero for sort of like the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of people are picking up on the comments that what's Rodon done wrong? Why isn't Rodon getting a look in at the moment? And it's interesting because coming around to you, Rob, on Romero first, I thought he was caught out of position a few times that first half after some rash lunges. But again, I think he's still, for me, just trying to get to know, get to reason with the Premier League, and that's going to take a bit of time. He's coming from a completely different league, as we know, and Italian to Premier League. They're two leagues that are played at a completely different pace. It's a different energy level. And I think it will take him some time. And we have to also take into account Romero has just come back off international duty to then come and play for Tottenham. And that's not easy in itself. But as a whole, I would say that he looked better in the second half. He looked leggy at times because of the international commitments like Emerson. But are you excited for what you've seen so far of Romero? And who do you think will be that preferred partner between now and the end of the season? Will it be Eric Dyer for you?
Yeah, I think it's Dyer if no one else comes in, and I don't think someone will come in January. I actually don't think, given the other areas of the squad that I would personally think need improving. Before that, I don't think centre back is a priority. I think Romero gives you probably that proper top class centre back that you're looking for. Then you've got Sanchez and Dyer. I wouldn't say there's much between them. I think Dyer's reading of the game is better than Sanchez, but Sanchez has got that pace to recover scenarios when things go wrong. Joe Rodon's interesting because he wasn't even on the bench yesterday. Japhet Tanganga was on there, and I think Japhet's on the bench ahead of him, obviously, because Japhet can play a couple of positions. Joe Rodon's clearly solely a centre back at the moment, and Joe's only just coming back from injury, had a long Euro campaign, etc., etc. So, he's fourth choice centre back clearly right now, Joe Rodon. But I think it's going to have to be the pairing. I think addressing in terms of long term, who do you sign? What are you signing next? I think central midfield, in terms of the two positions as I mentioned earlier, and another striker are bigger priorities than centre back. I think for what Spurs are trying to do, which is trying to squeak into that top four and be that team ahead of Man United or Leicester, whoever. Yeah, their Dyer's fine, and that defence is fine. It's about the balance up the rest of the pitch, I think, for me.
Yeah.
Quite like Ricky, just on that, I'd quite like to get a left footer. I think we've been spoilt with obviously with Vertonghen. The balance that he and Toby had, telepathy at times. One's a Bentley, one's a Rolls Royce of defenders. We've got Romero now, who I think he could be a bit more of like a Humvee. Do you know what I mean? Like one of these guys, like still class, but actually like more kind of like rough and ready. I would like to see a left-footed central defender play alongside him. I know, don't get me wrong, we need another defender, let alone left footer. But when you see the likes of Vestergaard, for example, go to Leicester City, and bold account, I'm not saying he's had a fantastic season so far. Leicester have struggled up until last week, and obviously, Rob, you commentated on the game that just smashed Manchester United. But he's a genuine left footer. You look at the likes of another England centre back as well in terms of Tyrone Mings. I'm not saying that we're going to go and buy these players because why would they sell to us? But again, a genuine left footed centre back to actually go hand in hand with Romero. I think that's where anyone that comes into that side who we've got at the moment, a Sanchez, a Rodon or a Dyer, they're not genuine left footers. And, with the greatest respect, they're doing a job there. Do you get me? They're doing a job there. They're not in their best position. I think if you said to Dyer, you're going to be a centre-back, where would you rather play? He'd say on the right. And I think so would Romero, and I think so would Sanchez, and I think so would Tanganga. So, yes, they play where they're meant to play, they're told to play, if you like, but all four of them, with Tanganga as well, would want to play on the right side of defence rather than on the left. And I think that could be a problem for us.
I think it'll be interesting, Lee, as you said there, in terms of the upcoming window, whether Spurs do explore. I mean, as Rob, you said they probably won't. What they do in terms of the centre backs, because I think it's the worst thing. And Jonathan, you noticed as well by Spurs Twitter. I think if we're judging on their Eric Dyer, I think the jury's firmly out. That I think the Spurs fans would like to see another centre back come in, right? I mean, we like all signings, so I mean, it's a really tricky one. But just on Emerson Royale, I mean, he was stopping a bit up to that Newcastle's early opener, but I think as a player, he improved as the game wore on. Other than the yellow card for not a so subtle attempt to wrestle St Maximin, I thought he had a really good game. Again, you've got to take into account these guys are just coming back off an international duty when they're having to travel back at crazy times and then come to Spurs to then train, to then play. You've got to take that into account. I thought Reguilon, you look at him, he started shakily, but got plenty of space to get forward. He picked out Ndombele for Spurs' equaliser, of course. It was actually the Spaniard, as we said earlier, that got the referee's attention and putting him towards the emergency going on in the stands. And I think he was, if you look at the players as well, he was one of the more proactive players for Tottenham on the day. Maybe Reguilon will be improving game by game because, we ultimately need that telepathic partnership between that left fullback and right fullback. We said this so often, we had the days of Danny Rose and Kyle Walker. I think that's where Spurs' ultimate success came, was from those wing backs. And we have to hope eventually that Spurs are going to have that again. Whether that's from Emerson and Reguilon remains to be seen. But a player that's getting rave reviews at the moment, I'm conscious of time because we have to fill in as well the Vitesse preview. But Jonathan, Oliver Skipp, how impressive have you been with him this season? Bearing in mind he's had to step up from the Championship to the Premier League. At the moment, I think many would say he's probably one of the first names on the team sheet for Tottenham. Is he one of yours?
Yes. Looks the real deal, really. Coming back off a great season, obviously at Norwich, played a lot of football, played men's football in the Championship. He's come back. He had an injury, obviously, but he's overcome that pre-season, and he looked really good in pre-season. And I think we spoke about it earlier. Him and Højbjerg are that two that have to be. I think the decision not to play him in the North London at Arsenal, I think everybody saw what happened in the first half, and then also saw the difference when he came on at half time.
Yeah.
So he's come on great, and yes, he's going to be one of the first names on the team sheet. Like Rob mentioned there earlier, there is a little bit of a dearth behind that. So if he or Højbjerg gets injured, who plays there?
Yeah.
But at the minute, he's doing absolutely great. He's going to go on to big things. I think he'll probably, if he carries on this trajectory, he will captain Tottenham. Could be sort of like a career-long one-club man. And everybody would love to see it because he's a Spurs boy. Yeah. Come through the academy, and that's what everybody loves, isn't it? It's a player who comes through the academy and makes it in the first team. So, yeah. I agree.
Yeah, I think again, like you said there, for me, I think I get a really important display. I think he was, intercepting much of what Newcastle were trying to do, threading those balls through to get Spurs going in the opposite direction. Really been impressed by him. I've got a question here, actually. We'll ask you this one, Rob. This is from Dustin at Debo1980. He says, do you feel that with Højbjerg and Skipp in the middle, we are getting back to the way in which we played under Pochettino all those years ago? It allows that front four to push up and allows the fullbacks to bomb on. What do you think of that question? Well, unmute you there, Rob. That's not bad. That's the first time I've had that, and we've been going for a good hour or so. So, well played so far.
No, I didn't want to be the one person to do it.
There's always one. There's always one.
Yeah. Look, I wouldn't want to get carried away trying to compare anything to that elite pot, the peak Poch team. A product not only of incredible coaching, but some of the most ridiculously good recruitment in Premier League history. And we go, it'd be great to go back to the days of Vertonghen and Toby at their peak, and Musa in the middle, and Christian Eriksen. It was just like the club just nailed it. Almost every transfer for key transfer for a while there was just absolutely unbelievably good. But I think that I like that pairing. I think there are a lot of similarities between Skipp and Højbjerg. They'll do a lot of similar things. I think Skipp's probably, despite Højbjerg's lovely ball through for the goal, it was similar to the one he did against Wolves last season, where he pierced it through the through Connor Cody and everything. I think Skip's probably better technically on the ball. He's got a little bit more of that sort of winks, being able to link the play, but he does like to go forward. He looks at home now in the Premier League. He loves the football club. If you ever see him speaking about his favourite Spurs players or his memories and everything, he's a proper Spurs boy. And I think many of us were excited. And look, I think in terms of the system, Nuno did try and use him sort of on the right side of a midfield three and at the base of the midfield three and all of this. I think, basically he's one of these guys who can play in a two. That is best. And I think a future England player, to be honest, yeah.
I'm conscious of time, guys. We're going to try and squeeze this in the next 5 minutes and then do a quick 5 minutes on Vitesse. Pierre Højbjerg, Lee, to come round to you. As we discussed earlier, that ball through to Kane was just simply sensational, sumptuous, probably the word I would use, but the presence of Skip allowing him to get in that more advanced role now, I think does show you the potential of what Højbjerg can bring. We've had a question, Højbjerg, which I want you to answer. This question is coming in from Sperano1, who says, we were overly reliant on Højbjerg last season, who had to play every minute in the league. I hope Skip coming back would give him the chance to rest, but halfway through October, and he still hasn't had a rest. Do we have the personnel to cope without Højbjerg to play every week?
No, I think that's what Rob touched upon this earlier, and John as well spoke about it a minute ago. The strength and depth around, giving Højbjerg a rest. Look, I think we've got enough games. I think if you was to ask Pierre to play every Premier League game, I don't think that's a problem. I think the problem arises, and I've had my view on this before, Rick, on the show a couple of weeks ago, when you start him in the Europa Conference Leagues games, because you're either using that competition as a development for getting everybody else. How can you expect, for example, regardless of what you think of him or not, he's one of our own. He runs through walls for this football club in terms of Harry Winks. Regardless of what you think about him, how can you get Harry Winks up to speed if you're not going to be using him in the Europa League conference games or the Carabao Cup games, for example, and you're playing Højbjerg? So you've got to be able to give the fellow a rest. You have to be able to give the fellow a rest. I think that you're absolutely spot on. Did he play? I think he played every minute of every game or whatever it was last season, and he was fatigued. He then played the whole of the Euros. They had a good Euros as well, to be fair, with Denmark. And you need to be able to try to shuffle the pack, shall we say, and balance that around. And I think that the only way you're going to get trust back into the likes of Harry Winks or people that are kind of on the fringes to come in and play that role is to play them. That's the reality. And Skip's come in. I think he's been absolutely outstanding. And maybe with having a Skip next to him this season, rather than maybe a Lo Celso or a Tanguy Ndombele that Jose was trying to make, as Rob said earlier, trying to make into that kind of mould. Maybe with a Skip next to him, he's sharing a bit more of that workload. Does that make sense? So maybe he can play a few more games. But the Europa Conference League games for me, the early rounds of the FA Cup, if we get easier draws, which you would hope, lower league teams, etc. Leave Højbjerg out. Give him a rest. Leave Son out.
He was overused, wasn't he, Lee? I mean, it was clear. I mean, he was one of the best players in the Premier League, I thought, for the first few months, and then had a big drop off. I think back. Yeah, was it the FA Cup game, Jonathan? The Everton. He had a gave away a pen and.
He had a stinker, didn't he? I think against Man City a few days later as well. He was
he gave away another pen, did he?
Yes, it was two in a row, wasn't it? It was 2 in a row.
I think two pens, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if
Jose didn't trust the team without him.
No,
Jose just would go. At half time, what was it? What was the 4 sub game? Antwerp, where it was the 4 subs at half time, and it's like Højbjerg, they need a goal. You bring him on defensive fielder because he just didn't trust the team without him.
No.
So.
Yeah, we've already seen that this season, though. I don't know if you went to Rennes, Rob.
Yeah.
Spurs got the other goal and then completely lost control of the game, and Nuno decided he had to put
exactly,
Højbjerg when came off injured.
I think, like you said there, John and Rob, I mean, it speaks volumes just how much he's required. The fact that we're prepared to bring him on, even when maybe there's a preferred position. That would maybe be more favourite, but yet we're bringing on the defensive midfielder, and that's maybe the leader in him. which he is. But just to finish up, I mean, Mora, he thudded a header against the crossbar from Son's corner, and it was a dribble in the centre of the park that led to Spurs' third goal. Newcastle simply couldn't keep up with the Brazilian. I think we've got to say Mora's had a really good start to the season. I think Mora's a player that can really polarise opinion. But yeah, again, like I say, he works ever so hard for Nuno, and I think that's one of the key reasons why he's in the team. After the game, Nuno said it was a positive performance. We had the issues of the preparation for the game with the false positives, which created disruptions. It was good, but everything they did was because they had the foundation behind them. Skippy and Pierre, they did fantastic. The idea was clear. We was controlling the game really well, and I believe that with all the international break disruption, the more time I have with the players on the pitch, I believe it's better for them. So that was Nuno's thoughts. We are going to go for our final break of the show. Taking into this break, you're going to hear from Michael Statham for our listeners on audio, who's giving you a quick preview of Vitesse. When we come back, due to time, we're going to give a quick 2 minutes on this and, like I say, give our score prediction. Like I say, for our watching audience on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us, which I understand Arsenal losing to Crystal Palace. Please correct me if I'm wrong now, because this could be ever so embarrassing. I think that is a confirm now. This is the worst thing doing it on a Monday night, which we never normally do. 2-2. Fantastic. Thanks, Lee. Brilliant. There you go. 2-2. It ends there. So there you go. Let's discuss Vitesse now.
They're still playing. Sorry,
still going.
They're still playing. It's in the 96th minute, and they've just equalised. Classic Owners. You could not make this stuff up.
Oh dear. Always the way.
Hopefully they get ruled offside or something.
Fingers crossed. Can we get that VAR review on there right now, please? Right. Vitesse preview, guys. Thursday night. It's the Conference League again. It's our most popular show of the week, if not. Let's come to you, Rob. Vitesse, you were saying that obviously you knew them a little bit in terms of their profile. I mean, they did really well to edge out Anderlecht in that qualifying round, drawing 3-3 away and winning the 2-1 at home thanks to Maximilian Wittek's double strike. And then Thomas Lech's side, they stretched out in this pool for 2-0 success against NS Mora, where Sondre Tonstrad and Daniel Doki were on target. What kind of side are we facing, Rob, on Thursday night? And we are going to unmute Rob again to allow the quality to come through the mic.
They had a spell last season where it looked like they were in the title race. They went on this sort of mad run where they won 5 or 6 games after Christmas. And you thought they were in the title running. You know, Ajax are, by far and away the best team in the country. But they're very, they are a good team. It's 3 at the back. They've got these very aggressive wing backs, including Maximilian Wittek, who you mentioned there, who will get forward to score goals. On the right hand side, it will be Eli Dassa, who's a Israeli international. They'll bomb on. There's 2 things to watch out for, I think, with this team. They normally play with 2 up top. They had Armando Broja, who scored for Southampton the other day, who was up front for them last season, but he's there no more, obviously. One player is called Rashedli Bazour, who plays at centre back. He wears number 10. He plays at the heart of that back 3. And he'll try and just dribble up the pitch. He's just given a role from centre-back because he used to be an attacking midfielder where he can just, from centre-back, go wherever the hell he wants. So Rashedli Bazour, we'll see him do that. The other thing is that Usama Tanan, who is sort of their playmaker, this sort of stocky, brilliant technical player, has currently been booted out of the squad by Thomas Lech because he's got an attitude problem. He's had numerous discipline issues through his career. So they are missing probably their best creative player at the moment. But a tough test, Spurs got unlucky with that group, tough group. I'm sure Nuno would love to be playing, the academy guys and giving Niall John minutes and blah, 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 blah. But it's a tough game.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Rob. Coming over to you, John. We've seen this season a real mixture from Nuno. He's actually, filled the likes of Harry Kane in this competition. We've seen more. I think we've seen Son as well feature as well. What kind of team do you expect to see, John, on Thursday? Are Spurs going there to almost kind of get this job done to a point of getting this qualified and then look to maybe use the squad as a development tool? Or how do you see Spurs panning out in terms of that squad going there?
Well, I think it's probably the second toughest game in the group. I think Renaway was the first. I think he has to bear West Ham in mind on Sunday. I don't think you'll see a really, really strong team. I think there'll be a lot of changes, but I don't think he can afford to go sort of like academy kids because I think they'll get turned over. Spurs have had trouble in these sort of games over the last 18 months. We saw in the Europa League last year, Antwerp. So I think there'll be a few changes. I think Veal will come back in. The back 4 will probably change. Sanchez will play, Rodin, etc. Doherty, Davis. But I think it'll be fairly senior still.
A lot of Spurs favourites there you mentioned there, John. A lot of people getting very excited with that. Lee, let's
Yeah, they're not going to be watching that game now.
But I think I agree though. I think it's what he's got to do that because you know, on one hand, this is the point I was making a couple of weeks ago, right? You can't go for 4 trophies if everyone thinks we've got a rubbish squad or not good enough squad. You can't go for 4 trophies or 4 competitions. You can't do it. You haven't got. It's unrealistic. You've got to be realistic. And if we want to go and try and win the Europa Conference League, then why wouldn't we be playing our first 11? Because we want to get in the top 4 and the top 5. And we've got, as you said, Jonathan, we've got West Ham away on the weekend. So he has to balance it out. So, you know, there are senior players. You know, Davis was, you know, has had some fantastic games for Tottenham, as has Sanchez, as has Harry Winks as well. You know, they should have enough to come in and actually prove to the manager, prove to the rest of the players that actually I'm gonna fight for my spot and I'm gonna get it on. Like we haven't, you know, Daly's gonna be one to fight there. Lo Celso hasn't played in the Premier League this week, so maybe he comes in. You know, you've got to be looking at. I think, you know, you've got Hill, haven't you? You've got, you know, Bergwijn. You know, there's a lot there to be able to give Vitesse a game. And actually, if you come away in Europe, I don't care who you play. If you come away with a draw, at least a point, and then turn them over at home, you pretty much go through the group, and that's ultimately what we've got to try and do. So, you know, I completely agree that it needs to be changed up. And the reality is, if we're going to sit there 2 minutes ago and talk about Højbjerg needing the rest, and then all of a sudden we're going to worry about Winks coming in, that's exactly my point.
Yeah,
Winks has to come in and play that position.
No, he does. Yeah, I think this kind of game actually highlights the 2 areas why I think striker and defensive midfield are the key areas. Because you go, well, who comes in for Kane?
Yeah.
And then who comes in alongside Winks? The rest of the team you can fill in.
Yeah, so true. It's
Great
great
one side, Bergwijn,
Yeah.
Daly. You probably play Lo Celso in the 2, probably.
Yeah.
Which you can afford to do in this game, but I think it probably highlights what areas need fixing.
I mean, if you look at the Moura game, and I know that Scarlett started, and I would have done that. Thank goodness I'm not the manager, by the way, viewers and listeners, clearly. But I would have started Scarlett like he did, and I wouldn't have put Kane on at all. But the fact that he did bring him on, he scored a hat-trick, fantastic for him. But I would start Scarlett in that situation as the backup, as you know, as the number 2, if you like, to Kane.
Your alternative striker, yeah.
Because we haven't got another choice, and if you don't play him, what message is that sending out to him? Saying actually we don't think you're good enough. We're going to play a makeshift striker in your position, or you're going to play Kane. So maybe Kane's sitting there going, actually, boss, I want to play because he needs to get that, you know, keep that momentum going. So if he plays on Thursday and scores another 2, he'll rock up at West Ham, will probably score a brace as well. But how long is it going to be before he burns out?
Well, this is it. I think that West Ham game now, it's so pivotal, isn't it? It's so important by the way Spurs are playing. That, you know, and West Ham, as we've seen this season there and last season as well, that's not an easy test at all. They're playing ever so well under David Moyes. So that'll be tricky. But guys, we are duty bound as we close the show to ask predictions. Rob, John, you're probably not used to this in your line of field. It's normally you guys, normally Rob talking it, John writing it. Lee, me and you, we do this every week, mate. So absolutely no sympathy at all. Let's start with John on this. John, been lovely having you. What are you going for on Thursday in terms of a prediction?
Okay, I'm actually going out to the game on Thursday.
Okay.
So
even better.
Spurs should have enough, no matter what team you play, you think, to beat Vitesse, especially if their best player isn't playing. I'm going to go 3-1.
3-1 Tottenham. Okay, nice. Brilliant. Rob, let's come round to you. What would you be commentating on in terms of a scoreline? What are you going for?
Yeah, 2-1. Brian Hill, first goal for Spurs.
I like it. I like that. I'm already looking forward, Rob, to the commentary on that one.
I told you Ricky will be the goal shout.
That's what I want, that, mate. I told you, Rick. I want that loud and clear across the beamer. We'll get it up here. Fantastic. And Lee, mate, closing it with you. We're gonna have a positive here, Lee. What are we going in terms of this game?
I think it's a clean sweep as long as you ain't going for a draw, Rick. I was going to go for it. I think they're a little bit tighter because of the changing up in the formation in the playing staff. So I think I'll go 2-1 as well. But I'm going to go with Scarlett to score his first goal Come on, Dane, get in there, son.
I like it.
For the boy.
I like it. I'm going to go for a 2-1 away win. Can't go 2-0. I just can't at the moment with Spurs. The erratic nature of defending Rivers in there at the moment. I'm going to go with 2-1. So that full panel across the board. We've had back-to-back Premier League wins. Look at the positivity now rifling through the camp as we head off, like I say, to this trip on Thursday. I've got to say thank you to our two great debutants. It's been an absolute pleasure having them. First up, John, lovely to finally have you on. Been great to have you. Sorry we've overrun. If you ask Lee, I do it to everybody. I say we do it at a certain time. We end up overrunning. Such is nature. John, for anyone that doesn't follow your content, where can they find the work you do, John? Where can we find you?
So yeah, just on Twitter, really, Jonathan Veal@83. I post all the links to where my stories go.
Fantastic, lovely. That's how we'll be sharing this as part of the show as well. Rob, been lovely to finally get you on. For people that have heard your dulcet tones, where can they actually find the man?
What? Well, my house. You want to give my address on this?
What's that? I should say, where can they find the man's social profile?
No, yeah.
Unless you want to give out your address as well, you're more than welcome. Like a queue of people at the door looking for the commentary lines.
I really do not. At Rob T Daly on Twitter, my LinkedIn. Don't bother. And of course, Spurs TV. And if you want to come say hello over at Spurs, normally about an hour before kickoff, I'll be down by the southwest corner before N17, doing N17. So feel free to come over and say hello.
Fantastic. Yeah. Rob, I'm only going to say this once for the fear of embarrassment. I look forward to you commentating on an absolute quadruple this season and us being the ones that you have to say them referring to it. That was because the last word on Spurs, on Spurs TV, that done it. Fantastic. And you've got to hold you to that. We're liable, so that will definitely be the case. Lee, thank you so much, mate. We're back next week, of course, for West Ham, me and you. And obviously we're covering Thursday, of course, in the Europa Conference League as well.
Absolutely, and the crazy trend continues. Long may it continue with wins like that. You know, if we keep playing like that, like I said against Villa, and I say again against Newcastle, if we keep playing like that, we will win more games than we lose. Oh, and what a fantastic finish! I mean, I'll take that all day long.
Lee McQueen.
Nice one, Space Bar Gamer.
There's a lot of Lee McQueen lovers out there, I tell you. From us all here, from Jonathan, from Rob, from Lee, from myself, guys, thank you so much for watching, for listening wherever you are around the world. As always, keep safe, keep well, and as always, come on, you Spurs.